Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's school committee meeting. Erica, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. We have a consent agenda, the minutes from May 23rd, 2019, and oath to bills and payroll.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from May 23rd, 2019, and the oath to bills and payroll.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. We have two sections in the meeting for interested citizens. One here now at the beginning of the meeting and one at the end of the meeting. Are there any interested citizens that have anything they'd like to bring up with the school committee? All right, seeing none. We'll move into recognition, our student representative report.
Hello. All right, so at Shaker Lane, the first color dash run took place, and Ms. Kane just wanted to say thank you to the PTA and all the 331 people that participated. And the art show at Shaker Lane will be held next Wednesday on the 12th from 5 to 7, and all the school committee members are invited. At Russell Street, their band concert will be taking place tonight at the high school. And at the middle school, the 6th grade country expo took place today. The 8th grade graduation ceremony will be on Monday, the 17th. And the middle school band concert took place just this past Tuesday. And high school, the graduation will be at 5:30 at Alumni Field tomorrow.
All right, thank you. Mr. Clenchy, under recognition, do we have anything?
We're good this evening.
Okay. The only thing I would like to mention is that prior to starting the meeting tonight, we had our annual ceremony for our staff that's retiring, and we were at Shaker Lane because we were on their home turf. We had two retirees this year, Janice Hartford, who was the nurse for 9 years at Shaker Lane, and Sandy Hill, who's been a teacher at Shaker Lane, and I'm not making this up, for 36 years at Shaker Lane. So we had a nice ceremony over there. We'd like to recognize both of them and thank them and wish them the best in their transition into retirement, at least retiring from Littleton Public Schools. All right. We're going to go right into presentations. First, we're going to kick off the Friends of Alumni Field.
So hopefully y'all have it. I put it at each everyone's spot. So I am Jillian Shaw. I am here on behalf of the Friends of Alumni Field. So just a reminder, Friends of Alumni Field is a nonprofit organization that was assembled for the singular purpose of helping the town of Littleton to offset the cost of caring for, maintaining, and improving the Alumni Field facility. So today we are here, when the concept of the field was originally presented, we had come and did a presentation about ways to help raise funds towards this organization. So we're just revisiting it. We've had great success with the BRIC program, and now we'd like to implement our second phase of fundraising, which would be the signs with sponsors within the facility. So there's sort of a two-part to this. One today is just the overall look, position, and feel of the signs. Where you see sponsor graphics listed, those will come at a later time. Right now, today, what we're looking to get your feedback on and basically your approval on is where they're located, what they look like, their sizes, so that we can move forward with presenting to sponsors that we have lined up. So the first one would be your ticket booth. So this will be, again, we've really heard what people had to say as far as sponsorships within the facility. We want it to be a clean look and feel with the same colors of our school. So as you kind of flip through the program, the first one is on the ticket booth. Our goal really is to get one large sponsor for the entire facility, the inside of the facility. So we've left on the second page a freestanding sponsor sign that would be more for like our community businesses, things like that. So one large sponsor that would take the inside sponsor spaces, and then a Friends outside space. All of these sponsor areas are all limited on time frames, so some are 2 years, some are 5 year. Obviously, if we could get one large sponsor to come in and sign up for 10 years. That's, again, ideally what we look for. And then this Friends one would be something that would rotate out every 2 years. So it could recognize coaches, it could recognize community members, it could be a small ad. It just depends on who is interested in that space. The next one would be the media booth, which would be attached to the fencing. The next one would be the concession sign, which not only do we think is helpful because I know a lot of people have been confused on where the bathrooms are, but we've plugged in there basically a mock-up of Northern Bank. Now, they're not specifically the person that we're going after, but we wanted to give you a general sense on how we see these sponsors coming in here, as far as what it would look like plugged into these signs. So we did ask them to mock up a version for us so you can get a general sense of what all the signs would sort of look like, especially if it was one large sponsor. Their logo would be in all of these spots. And then the last page would be the scoreboard. So there's a front part of the scoreboard underneath, and then the back side. So I don't know if anybody has ever driven by the Maynard sports sign, but when you drive by, they did a great job where they did something on the back of it, so it wasn't so, just metal kind of hanging out. So we thought we could utilize the space as well. And just a reminder, we're very aware that all of the sponsor signs will still need final approval by the school committee before installation. What we're looking for today is just to get the approval for the main signs themselves. They'll be a high-quality investment, so we want to make sure before we not only have them made, but also before we go to sponsors and show them what they could look like, that we're presenting the correct information. Do you have any questions?
Start with Jen, on your end.
No, not right now. Looks good.
Erica?
I think it looks good. Do you have like a price sheet for the different spots?
Yeah, again, ideally, we'd love to see one large sponsor come in. Our commitment since the beginning has been $50,000 a year, and we want to stay to that number that we came and presented. So, depending if we get somebody in for 5 years, if we get somebody in for 10 years, just kind of do the math from there. If we can't find one large sponsor, then, of course, you would have sort of a breakdown on each of the spaces individually, and that was part of the original presentation. But I think we'd really like to try to see from a process perspective, so that we're not constantly every 2 years having to switch out signs. If we could get one large sponsor to commit to us for a long period of time, that would be a good idea and solution.
Okay. You good?
Yep.
Okay, I have a few questions. So what time frame are you looking for to actually put these up?
We would love to have them up by the end of the summer.
Okay, so we're trying for the next.
Yeah, so we kind of, again, this isn't exact, we wanted to have a little bit more detail in here, and we would have loved to have
Okay, that's
more,
fine.
but,
I just want to make sure I knew we were. clear
yeah,
on that.
ideally, we would love to have this done and installed for the beginning of the next school year.
Do you guys have a cost estimate just
We
to
do.
put those up? What is that?
So the signs, the sponsor signs, and the installation is $25,000.
Okay, and is that going to be paid for out of the
That's
fundraising
correct.
you've already done?
We've raised enough money through the brick sales that this would all be covered by that. So we have just over $50,000 in the bank right now,
Okay.
so we would already have those funds to pay for that.
Okay, terrific. And I know you answered the question Erica asked about it's going to depend, right, on how it all falls out. Are you in negotiations or soliciting? Do you
We
have-
know who we want to go for, and we've had conversations.
Okay.
The problem is, until we can, if you're going to go in and ask for a significant amount of money for a long period of
Right.
time, you want to make sure you're doing a presentation of a high caliber. So I didn't want to go in there
No, that's
and
fine.
present with them to say, well, it could be like this.
Right.
We need to go in there with
Yeah,
exactly.
The school committee said. and
You got it.
here's
It's been
the dates,
approved.
the signs are going up. And,
Yep.
Okay.
This would all, and we would basically, we would go after, we have 3 big people in mind, and obviously, we don't want to completely divulge who those
No,
are.
no,
as there is-
not asking for that, that's
But
fine.
these would be all mocked up specifically for that one business,
Okay.
so that they would see what it looks like.
Okay. And you have your vendor picked out for doing the.
Yes, we've moved through a couple vendors. Communication is key to me, and I think when you don't have someone who's responsive, it makes it difficult. So we've moved to this vendor we feel very comfortable with, very knowledgeable, and very responsive, and they actually put this presentation together. So they clearly know what they're doing, and
I think we have a consensus, and the times you were here previously, I think we're pretty much on board with, now it's coming down to the details.
You got it.
But the one thing I would like to do is, we don't have our business manager here, and I'd like the AD to take a look at this and
Sure.
get his input. But and that's why I asked specifically what the time frame was, we'll do that now.
Okay.
And move it forward and get you guys primed and ready to go to move through the summer.
Okay.
I don't envision any particular problems, but we just gotta go ahead and go through
Sure.
that process.
I mean, ideally, we'd love to have these meetings booked by the end of the month, so if we
Yep.
could have an answer, so if we need to make adjustments,
Right.
that we have the time to do that, because, yes.
Okay. And then the only thing I would ask of the school committee is that if we feel that we need to debate anything, we might have a quick special meeting just specifically to deal with this. I want to talk to Dr. Clenchey and look at our notes, our minutes, to see how did we vote anything, or have we just been basically working off consensus? But if we need to do that, we will again do that
Sure.
in short order. Because again, I think we have consensus, so I think it'd be more pro forma, but if it needs to get done, we'll make sure we do it correctly. So I don't want us to start going down the road and then have to hit the brakes because we didn't take care of our
Sure.
end. So we will get this in front of the AD, make sure we're all set to go, and get back to you guys. And at
Okay.
this point, assuming that that goes forward, you no longer will need to deal with us. You'll be dealing directly with the administration.
Okay.
And whether it's the AD and or business manager, however they decide. they
And does
want to
that
do it.
include the final approval of any of the sponsorship signs that go up?
Yes, because we have a policy in place, and as long as they're executing on the policy,
Okay.
then we're okay.
Okay.
We should not be in the business of thumbs up or thumbs down on
Okay.
particular businesses and stuff. We would leave
I
that
just
to the
wasn't sure we had to
administration.
wait till the next school committee meeting, which obviously there isn't.
Right, no, the
extent to that.
administration has the policy and
Okay.
direction from the school committee, and they will execute on it. If they screw up, then we'll have to deal with it.
Okay.
We trust they will.
Okay.
I mean, they're in communication with us. It's not like it's going to happen in a vacuum, but. it
No, I
won't
think that
require
helps
it.
knowing that we're not waiting to come back to another committee
Yes.
meeting to
No,
have the
that's
graphics approved.
Yeah. Yeah.
That certainly helps us, and
Yeah.
we can move forward. Obviously, if we need to tweak here and there,
Right.
no problem. And I think we have a couple of our own tweaks as well, as far as like.
You can go back and forth with the
Yeah,
administration
okay.
and not.
I think we just wanted to make sure you were good with the feeling. We really wanted to
Yeah.
stick to that Tiger Pride and the colors of the school, and not have this be like, sponsorship logos everywhere.
Appreciate the effort. If it all comes together, it's a terrific goal that, because one of the things that we did debate at length when we decided to go with the synthetic surface was knowing full well that the carpet wears out over time. That's inevitable, and being able to fundraise and earmark a chunk of money towards that really helped us when we were going for community outreach and support for the project. So it's great that we're following through, you guys are following through, and if we
Absolutely.
can get there, the community will be well served. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right.
Oh, sorry.
I'm just wondering, can we vote to approve this, conditionally, or?
I want to make sure the AD gets a look at it first, because I want to make sure he's okay in terms of the safety and playability of the, that's my only hesitation. And that's why I caution that maybe I have to bring us together to quickly take a vote on that, but I don't
Absolutely.
want to do it without talking to him. I would feel like.
And there's one area that you may want to, and it sort of came up on me, and if you look at the media booth sign, since it's attached to the fence and there's bolts, they've had to put like a 2-inch, bump out behind those bolts to protect it so no one, so again, I know they're up there videotaping, it's not above the fence line, it's below it, but I don't know if they're already short on space, I don't know if we can ask the
So
sign.
that's exactly the kind of thing that I just
To
want
make
to
it a
make
little bit
sure.
smaller,
Right.
absolutely.
Well, I just want to make sure he's seen it and he's like, oh, that's not going to work because of this, because he's got much more operational familiarity than we do.
Sure.
So.
Because we originally had it below that, but again, value is perceived, so if you have a very significantly smaller sign there,
Right.
so we want to maximize our space without at the same time. But again, so if we had one large sponsor, we'd love to almost push the Home of the Tigers over and give them one spot instead of sort of breaking up their information between two.
Right.
I hope that that's okay. If that's something that we decide to change and it does sort of move to one big space, that would just be done through the business department, correct? Okay. All right. We all good? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
All right, next we have Littleton's Portal to the World.
Hi, so the Portal to the World is a really exciting program that we're bringing to the district next winter and spring. It's kind of a mysterious topic, title, but it kind of is exactly what it sounds like. Short of traveling across the world, it's an audio-visual experience that students in the community can participate in that allows you to talk with countries, people in different countries in a curated network. So there's a video that we're not going to show tonight, but it's available to you in the agenda, and it does a much better job at showing you what the portal looks like than probably what I can describe. I went in so you can kind of see in the background, it looks like a gold shipping container, so I was able to participate in one at WGBH in Boston last spring and talk to people at an engineering university in Western Afghanistan, and it was so eye-opening and just stuck with me that I really wanted to bring it to my students in particular, and then it turned out that it would work to bring it really to our whole district. It touches on all of the things that are important in our district: collaboration across cultures, teaching across borders, digital learning, and really at the heart of it is conversation with people in general and people in different cultures. So this map, it's a little bit dated. Right now, Shared Studios, who basically founded the portal system, they have about 40 portal networks around the world, from a refugee camp in Gaza and Israel to Iraq to Afghanistan to Mexico City, and many, many more. So these sites are all set up on a network where each site has a curator that vets who gets to talk there and can also facilitate different topics. So whether you want to talk to other engineers, or I'll explain in a minute how we brought this to the middle school a week ago. It seems like it's just been a very busy time of year. But last week, I guess it was, and we spoke in one day to people in Greece, Sweden, Kenya, and Afghanistan, which was really, really awesome. So it's a trusted network, making it different from like a mystery Skype program or something like that, where you're speaking with other people who have the same goals of making partnerships across the globe. So our vision for Littleton is that already we've secured really generous funding from LEF and the Kimball Foundation, and we've partnered with Andover Public Schools, who basically own several portals. The bottom picture shows the Inflatable Portal, which is what we'll be bringing to Littleton and what was in our library last week. It comes in a duffel bag and just inflates with a fan, and inside is a ceiling to floor screen, a pinhole camera, speakers, a laptop, an internet connection. And every time we use this portal, it comes with a curator from Andover and Shared Studios who deals with all the tech and the connections and any glitches that might come up. So we're planning on bringing the portal back in the winter and spring to first come to the middle school library again, where we would use it, but also Shaker Lane, Russell Street, the high school could come and sign it out and use it as well. We ran a PD day, which was really successful last week with teachers across the district, and then we were able to keep the portal for free the next day, courtesy of Andover, to kind of pilot it with some students. So I brought in a little more than half of the 6th grade class at different times of the day. Just worked out that way with our schedule. I would have loved to bring them all, but it was an amazing experience to see them talk to people, and we spoke with people in a design community center on the island of Lesbos in Greece, who basically provides education to refugees coming from the Middle East. And also we spoke with Was that the day of Afghanistan? Yeah. We spoke with people at Herat, Afghanistan, of like high school age to like their late 20s who were professors of mathematics at the university. And so the kids just, I wasn't sure, I was piloting it with the kids, but they really, at first they were a little bit shy, but it was just an incredible experience to watch them talk with these people and really get into it and communicate. And the possibilities for curriculum connections and from preschool to seniors in high school are really limitless. And we would also like to open this to the community, so we'd like to have some weekends, some Saturdays and evenings to bring Littleton community and possibly even surrounding towns to come in and experience it as well. I pulled a few quotes from some teachers at the PD on last Wednesday. So Sue Harvey at the high school said, "The portal opens the world to all students. You don't have to actually travel, but you're still leaving our zip code." So she was talking, I mean, as you know, she provides a lot of actual learning abroad programs, which are expensive. So she was saying, wow, like now all my students can participate in this for free, and it's a very similar experience to have these conversations. Lauren Lapo says, as a foreign language teacher, the portal will add perspective to what I teach and allow the students to ask questions and think about ideas that they never would have thought of. And Angie Gresco, a special ed teacher at the middle school, said, the opportunities are endless here. You can take this in so many different directions, and the portal is accessible to everyone. My mind is going in a million directions after this PD. I have so many good ideas of how to use this. And these are just a few shots of our teachers. We connected with Nairobi, Kenya, and Sweden. Stockholm. No. Yeah, it was Stockholm. Stockholm, Sweden. So that was really cool. And we got to have the teachers come in different small groups. And you can see that the portal can be closed as a space, or you can open up and kind of have more people involved. But having the door shut and being inside, you do all of a sudden feel like you're in this small environment having an actual conversation, as if I am with you right now, but these people are across the world, which makes it really cool. And then these are just a few shots of the students speaking with Herat, Afghanistan, in both of those pictures. So we're excited to bring this. We're excited to explore. We're kind of open to so many different uses of it with our students. A couple just quick examples to wrap up are the day before the PD, it was like International Children's Day. So the teacher from Andover explained how he took some elementary students in. They connected with Lagos, Nigeria, and they both shared songs back and forth and sang. And he said he just, like, he couldn't help but like well up with tears. It was like such a beautiful experience. He had some different videos of kids, like in Mexico City, there was a person that is related a lot in the arts there and does street performing. So he had his guitar and wrote a song with some elementary school kids that they performed there. Kids have done research at the high school level to interview different people and get information that way. So it's really, the video will, I encourage you to watch the video later when you're home, that it's a really inspiring tool, and I'm really excited and thankful to be able to bring it here to all of us. Any questions?
The technology is under control. Thanos isn't coming through with the Infinity Stone.
The technology is really basic.
Okay.
It's like a regular internet connection, and yeah, it's actually probably the simplest part of it, oddly.
All right, any other questions or comments?
How many students can go in at a time?
So it depends on like elementary kids, maybe. They've said that, so this portal is actually a little bit smaller than what's going to be coming. We're going to be having a brand new one, which is a little bit wider from what I understand. So elementary kids sitting on the floor, you could get a good number. I don't know. I was going to say 12, 15. We had probably, I probably had anywhere from like 6 to 8 middle school kids, although if I had arranged it differently, like kind of seeing what I know now, I maybe would have taken out the stool. You could have middle school kids sit on the floor. They were kind of standing and on stools, and high school kids and adults fewer. It just depends on the size. Excuse me. But and it also depends if you wanted the door open and closed. So I was thinking, like, in the library, you could have your full class in the seminar room and kind of take them into small groups, which is what I did. And if you wanted to, like, open it up to community, they had examples of zipping open the sides and, like, sharing a meal with people, where you put the table in the point of view that it looks like you literally are at the same table eating, or that they're sitting with you in the room. So it really depends on your use. They had, like, people do, like, rap performances and kids playing the instruments. So I think depending on your use, whether you wanted it to be, like, a more intimate environment and just have a few kids, or whether you wanted to open it up and have more people see it.
And so is there kind of like a menu of ideas of things that you can
Yeah.
do with it? Or is it teachers are just kind of coming up with, like, I'd like my kids to talk to someone about this?
I think both. That's a good question. I think both. So, like, one of the things we did at the PD was brainstorm different ways and have the teacher from Andover share with us ways that it was used. Andover is going to be offering at least one free session that Julie and I are going to invite our teachers to over the summer, where we can come and collaborate with other teachers that have used it. And also, if you have an idea, you might want to say, oh, it's a Spanish class. We're practicing, I don't know, certain kind of vocabulary that we want to talk to you. And they might say, okay, so we can hook you up with Panama or Mexico City and like focus it a little bit more. Or they had one where they did like a robotics, kind of sharing of robotics ideas and engineering. So you could plan that ahead. Or we were talking at the elementary level about having like a book that talked about Kenya and taught them about Kenya in like a picture book, and then allowed them a common, at least a starting place to talk. Or you could just, like here, I really honestly was like, this is spontaneous to use it with the kids, so we just kind of, we prepped them a little bit on like, where is this place, what's good etiquette and things like that, but it really was just a conversation. But for my class, for world geography, I mean, I can think of like a gazillion things depending on where we're studying that I would actually want them more focused on. But the short answer is, I think both. They have suggestions and different menu of things, and also you could be more like, I really want to, I don't know, I want to try this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Questions?
Will every student get to participate in this?
Absolutely. That's yes, that's the plan for sure. Assuming, yeah, like, I mean, so our PD was that we chose people we thought initially would be really into doing this, so that we could kind of have ambassadors to bringing this, and the hope is that then people will be like, oh, you did what? Oh, that's cool. Like, how did you, and like get more people interested in it. So the hope is, like, I could certainly take all the 6th graders in because I'm obviously going to use it, but then say it was like 8th grade, you'd have to have the buy-in from the teachers, which I think we did a pretty good job at beginning. And I think it will be a process to get more and more people on board, but the hope is that if more and more teachers want to use it, then absolutely all kids would be able to participate in it.
And my other question was, would you invite the members of the school committee to?
Absolutely, yeah, you would love it. It really, it's like, when you hear about it, I know from talking to Julie and Heidi McGregor also, we've been kind of working as a team of 3. They thought it was cool and they were willing to work with me, but when we went to Andover in January for a professional development day, and when they actually went in and did it, then they were like, oh, that is so cool. And I was like, I know, I was telling you that. But I think until you do it, absolutely, it really is kind of a life-changing experience, because now, and those guys that are sitting there, they were kind of at the end of Ramadan, they were talking about how they were telling the kids about fasting and how, what changes in society. And I had actually talked to them a couple times before, so it was crazy for me to be like, oh, hey, nice to see you again, Saeed. Like, that's, I don't know, like, that's really, is pretty wild, so.
Julie, compared to the VR goggles,
So-
what do you think? Those are pretty cool.
They are cool.
So I ultimately was just inspired by Lily's vision, and she was so excited. And when we went to Andover, my expectation, this completely surpassed my expectation. The connection that you make, the pictures don't do it justice either.
No.
After a while, once you kind of acclimate, you make eye contact. So there's something very intimate and very
Body
like,
language.
authentic
Yeah.
about it. So even to the point like you get that feeling, and a couple times, I think when we were with Greece, you know, they were coming up, you walk up closer to kind of show someone something. So it has a very unique experience. So it's so interesting because I feel like it doesn't really touch on VR. It's much more
Yeah.
human connection. So when it truly is that like learning through conversation and truly learning about someone else. And that's what was really kind of mind-blowing about
It was
it.
fun to watch the kids because they'd walk in and look at me and be like, "Can they see me?" I was like, "Oh yeah, they see and hear you." And then they were like, "Oh," and they, you know, because it's like when you meet someone for the first time and you're shy and you're kind of like, "Oh, I don't know what to say," and then that's how it's human. Is it's not just like you're watching a video or it's VR. It's like those are real people that can see you. They know what you're wearing. They hear the sound. Like it's pretty.
You'd be
unique.
such a wise guy.
Some still were, but we should try to temper it.
But for older students too, it's a true opportunity to get like authentic information, right?
Yes.
So again, you know, we live in this world of heightened media, right? So here you actually get true perspective from real people. And I think that just makes such a big difference and really could make such an impact on you know, high school all students,
Yeah.
but absolutely at that.
They did a unit, I think it was in Andover in high school on the Rwandan genocide, and they had like done all these case studies and read books and done research papers, and then they have a site in Kigali, Rwanda, and they talked to the people, and they were thinking all like, oh, like we know all this stuff, and they found out kind of amazingly that so much of what they had read about it was not accurate, and they went back to square one and kind of redid their whole lesson, which is kind of amazing because the people were like, no, that's not exactly what happened, or that's not the you know, and how else would you know that except from talking to people there? So pretty limitless.
Andover is the only school district in the world that
Yes.
has a site. So we're pretty lucky being able to partner with them and have them come over and show us the ropes, so to speak. Julie and I had the great experience of being in the portal and with Afghanistan, and they were switching up classes. So Julie and I were sitting on stools, and they're just right in front of us. So we started a conversation. It was incredible. It was authentic. I mean, we were looking at each other. It was almost as if they were sitting in the room with us, and you know, we had no script to go by. We just started talking, and in the end, they had to drag us out of there because they were getting Stockholm ready to come.
Yeah, that's right. We overstayed our welcome.
So it was great.
Yeah, it's an amazing experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are we doing the DC field trip?
Well, we don't have anybody here to talk about it. It's a field trip that has been going on for many, many years. There are no changes in format, so if you feel comfortable, I would certainly welcome a motion to support the trip for the next school year.
Make a motion to approve the May 2020 grade 8 field trip to Washington, D.C.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Because this is an out-of-state field trip relative to our current policy, which we may revisit, but this one will always be on there. This does require school committee approval, so is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. I'm actually going to move the agenda around a little bit. Apparently there was an agenda posted online that was a little different than this one, and we're going to talk now about the voter petition article because Mike Prue, the chairman of the Park and Rec Commission, is here to speak to that, and I don't want to keep him. He saw the one online that said we were going to do this around 7:15 rather than 8:50, so we're going to get this one out of the way. So the background here is that a citizen has presented a voter petition to amend the town bylaws, and in order to do that, we have to have a special town meeting. So the petitioner got over 200 signatures of citizens asking to have this special town meeting. There is one article that was approved by the Board of Selectmen this previous Monday for the warrant of this special town meeting, and it's the one that you have here in the packet. I am going to quickly read it. So the beginning of it is just a request to have a special town meeting to see if the town will vote to amend the code of the town of Littleton, Massachusetts to include an article providing that the board or committee with the care, custody, and control of any town-owned property, including without limitation any park, playground, public building, schoolhouse, school grounds, or parking lot, may rent or allow the use of any town-owned property to members of the public, individuals and groups, both profit and nonprofit, for reasonable uses at reasonable times. The board or committee with the care, custody, and control of a town-owned property will grant priority in the rental or use of the town-owned profit to nonprofit organizations, and particularly encourage the use of town-owned property by community groups, and particularly those groups which serve the needs of the youth of the region. The above provisions shall apply to any schoolhouse or school grounds to the extent that the school committee has delegated care, custody, and control to another town board or committee. That an event or program that is similar to any parks and recreation and community education offerings or events shall not be grounds to deny the use or rental of any town-owned property, provided, however, that the rental of any park, playground, public building, schoolhouse, or school grounds will not be allowed if it directly interferes with student activities, school-related functions, or any parks, recreation, and community education offerings or events. And this is online. I'm sure it's in our packet, and it's also in the packet from the Board of Selectmen meeting this past Monday. So because this is a town meeting and it is a proposed article, it does affect, or it concerns school property and school committee responsibilities. I think it's appropriate that we talk about it, debate it, and possibly entertain a motion to either support or not support it the way we would do typically we've done typically for articles in town meeting warrants. I've invited Mr. Prue here because this really is sort of it's an attempt by the petitioners to address what they feel are some shortcomings in the memorandum of understanding that we have that functions between the school committee or the school department, the park and rec department, and the highway department regarding several things: use of fields, maintenance of fields, and also there is a clause in there, just continuing for context, the school department many years ago, before even I was involved, had a community education component. We did classes at night on different things, and as part of a cost-cutting maneuver, that responsibility for providing that type of programming was moved from the school department to the park and rec department. And at the time, when the MOU was fashioned, the non-compete clause was put in because the Park and Rec wanted to make sure that the school department didn't decide, oh, well, there are certain community ed programs that were good money makers for us, so we conceivably would cherry pick, bringing those programs back and competing directly with the offerings that were conceivably being done by Park and Rec. That was the intent of why that was put in there, and this petitioner feels like maybe that's not serving the community as well as they would like it to, and so their strategy for amending that perceived shortcoming on their part is to amend the code of the town of Littleton. So there was a meeting at the Board of Selectmen that the Park and Rec did a fairly extensive presentation on. I've asked Mike Prue if he wanted to chime in before we start our discussion and how this is being perceived by Park and Rec.
Thanks for having me. So like Mike said, we presented to the Board of Selectmen Monday night. Tim Mahalski, our assistant director, put together a pretty thorough presentation, as Mike said. I think you detailed why we have the MOU in place and why we have the non-compete in place. I don't know if I need to say any more about that. Happy to answer any questions in regards to that. In this situation, it's a huge breakdown of communication because the petitioner never came to one of our meetings, never called our offices with these concerns. We're happy to work with the community when they come before us. We just worked with the Long Lake Beach neighborhood community to deal with some of their concerns. We made a bunch of concessions to the point where, some of our most vocal opponents of the things we wanted to do at the beach, sent us thank you letters. So, I think that's a good example of our willingness to deal with the community. And, like I said, Monday night, we would have been happy to try to work this out with the petitioner ahead of time to, save us this headache. But here we are. So, we hope that you guys will entertain a motion and not support this article. Again, the things we do with the community, we work with the Girl Scouts, we work with the Boy Scouts, we work with the Rotary Club. We are happy to work with the community. We're not trying to keep things out. We're not trying to deny access to anything. It's if we have, we try to hire the best instructors that we can for the programs that we run. We run a ton of programs for the size of our town. We try to keep the costs down. I was talking to Tim throughout, I've been talking to Tim and Alicia throughout this process, and, the type of programs we offer at the cost that we offer them are about 20% less when you compare them to other communities of our size. So we're trying to keep costs down. We're trying to hire good quality instructors. If we hire a quality instructor and then we allow, say, the school, if you guys wanted to run something that we were already running, that just undercuts our instructor. It takes away people that, they make a living doing this stuff, so it takes away their clientele. And, we also think the non-compete clause is in place, to, from our perspective, to try to, assure our instructors that, we sign a contract, they sign a contract with us, you as long as you're a quality instructor and you give quality, you run your program with quality, then, we're going to keep you and we're going to keep running it. So, I don't see the need for this. Again, we're happy to work with anyone that has an issue. So I'll happy to answer any questions you guys have in regards to this, as far as Park and Rec is concerned.
So I'm to understand that the petitioner didn't come to the selectmen's meeting on Monday night to give us any insight into why this was brought in.
True. Nor did they sign the petition.
Oh, very interesting. And do we have an idea how much this is costing the town?
So the number thrown out at town meeting was $13,000 total. That's out of my wheelhouse. So that's the number that the town clerk said.
And why was it? Why did this? Do does anyone know why it had to take place within 45 days of the?
I think that's part of our bylaws or state law or something.
Right. Once it's submitted and they have the requisite signatures, which they do, then we are required by Mass General Law within 45 days to have it. We can't just say we think it's a terrible idea, we're just going to ignore it. They have the signatures, the voters have, enough of the voters have spoken, and so we have to have a town meeting. The question that was raised on Monday among several was, why is this a special town meeting with one article on the warrant? Why wasn't this done as part of the spring town meeting, or we always have a fall town meeting as well? It can be put on there. And we've had, in many years, citizen petitions that are part of the warrant at those meetings. If you search around on social media, you'll see that the idea is that sometimes it's difficult to get the support out for a particular article at town meeting, because you have to go, if you're halfway through the warrant, or your article is halfway through the warrant, or 2/3 or 3/4 through the warrant, you got to wait to get your thing debated. And this idea here is that you come in, we debate it, we vote it, we're out. You're out in half an hour, 40, whatever it's going to take, but certainly shorter than a full town meeting. I think there's some frustration that was voiced by the town clerk that there's a significant expense involved. Now we have the overhead that we have to incur for a third time this year to provide another town meeting format for them, when it could easily have been done, albeit, that's part of the process, is having to navigate getting through the warrant, article by article. But I guess they decided that this was important enough to them that they were going to do it on their own at a special town meeting specific for this purpose.
I mean, they also could have waited till the fall. So,
Yeah,
I don't know what the
right.
urgency is. I don't.
Well, it's not. They don't want to do it that way. It doesn't matter that there's a fall town. There could be another town meeting a week before this one. They don't want to do it on a regular town meeting where they have to fit it in, their article in with the dozen, 20 other articles that are typically part of a town meeting. That's pretty clear in the social media. You read it, they're not hedging their bets on that one. They think that their best chance for success to get supporters to come out is to tell them, oh, it's not like you have to go to the whole town meeting, you just gotta go for this. It's just one thing. And
Yeah, I also think that the idea here is that they're gonna get their supporters there, and the hope is that there's not gonna be enough people interested in the article to go and shoot it down. And if there's only one article and people don't think, well, that doesn't really affect me, I'm not gonna go to the town meeting for one article. So, I think it's a pretty selfish article.
Well, so what does happen then? So if, you know, they get their folks going to the meeting, what's gonna be the change for the school committee, right? What are we going to see that's different?
I don't know. I mean, I've read the language and
Right.
I've thought about it. I mean, as I look at this, I'm saying, well, at least 2/3 of this is self-evident that that's what we do. And to Mike's point, you know, Park and Rec, that's what they do. They we rent and allow the use of town-owned property to members of the public, individuals and groups, both profit and non-profit, for reasonable uses, reasonable times. Yes, we do that. We do that, and Park and Rec does that, and other entities that have control of town property do that.
So if there's a business that wants to offer a free class, can the school department allow that right now? And will this change that?
I mean, Kelly can speak to it, but typically, yes, we could, if we wanted to. We would definitely dialogue with Park and Rec to understand, is this filling a need that's not being met by other programs? And if the answer was, no, we do this already, we would probably not be all that inclined to offer it, because there's a balance that has to be struck for us when we have our facilities being used by non-school purposes. I mean, that we're always looking to strike that balance. But to answer the question, that's what we do. We do
Right.
that. You know, we have free programs, we have for-pay programs.
So is it, I mean, I'm not sure how this applies to the school committee and why it's
I don't-
something we need to.
Well, it specifically
says that,
says
but what is the change,
schoolhouse,
right?
school grounds.
Yeah, you know.
There really, excuse me, I don't think there would be a change in the way we do business. What they're hoping is that we would be bound to give up our statutory rights to determine who uses our facilities.
So they
So
would
I
just
thought
go to whether or not we
At
approve it?
the selectmen meeting,
We still-
Daryl asked the question, and I thought the answer was that we would not, that this, even if this was approved, it wouldn't really change our
That's my
standing.
interpretation, and Daryl, you're right, Daryl did ask that question, and Daryl asked a question, as Daryl is wont to do, that he already knew the answer to.
Yeah, right.
To make his point, which was that we cannot be told what we can and can't do with our school buildings and property by anyone.
Right.
Park and Rec, the Board of Selectmen, citizens of the town, we are in charge.
This
And
is a-
that's statutorily supported and won't change unless something changes at the State House. And I don't think it will.
This is a policy issue. So the school committee has the legal right to set policy in regard to renting school facilities and grounds. So there's no vote, no entity that can take that right away. So in my opinion, it wouldn't change the way we currently do business. And I could extrapolate a bit. The Park and Rec agreement we have, we would work within those philosophical pillars despite the clause. It's really up to the school committee to set policy and the administration to decide on what's best for the students in this town and community. And we do that irregardless of a clause. So they're kind of separate items. I have to say that of all the places I've been a superintendent in my career, and I've worked with many Park and Rec boards, I've never had a clause like this in a contract, and we've never had any conflict. When I understand the origin of the clause, because we used to have community ed housed under the school department. So the original intent of that clause was to separate any loose ends that may have existed over 10 years ago.
I think part of the other part of the MOU that, we really need you guys, we need your space to run a lot of these programs. And so, we're partners, and, we want to continue to have a good, partnership with you guys. The board, as it's constituted right now, I have no, concern with that, anything's going to change if this, if our MOU doesn't exist. My concern would be that when you guys are all gone, who's next, and, what do they, they potentially, or they do, they.
Right, so that's the question, yeah, what can you imagine? Like, I don't know, what could change?
Well,
Just-
for example, like you said, if you guys want to offer a free program that we're already offering, you could do it. And, if the decision makers here change and you want to do it, then, we're going to start, we may have to start second guessing the programs we offer. The programming could be reduced by what we're offering.
And then the other issue is that and I would think that it would not be necessarily the offer of a free program. And the other thing I caution is when we use the word free, to be careful by what we mean by free, because nothing is really free. You may not charge a fee to the participants, but there's still overhead required to run any program, especially when we're hosting it. There's just no getting around that. But my concern would be that, again, if another administration or another school committee in a budget crunch decided, well, let's brainstorm on some ways that we can, it's like, we can probably do a better job of, if we look at the programming booklet for Park and Rec, well, they're teaching a coding class. We got people who can teach coding, or they're teaching a Spanish class. We got Spanish teachers. If we give them a stipend, we can undercut what they're, and piece it off, and we would get a revenue stream. I could easily see that happening, somewhere down. What the MOU does is it makes explicit what the expectations of the current boards and committees think is appropriate for the town of Littleton. Now, if things evolve, transition, turnover, and those boards and committees want to revisit those concepts, that's certainly their prerogative. But because it's explicitly stated, at least that's the point where they can start to say, well, we're definitely going to be changing something. Do we think there's merit in it? And if there is, there is. And if there isn't, there isn't. But I think that's the benefit of having it spelled out explicitly, is that everybody's working off the same playbook with very little or almost no confusion, or one party assuming one thing and another party assuming another. So, I don't, and to Mike's point, the fact that there is this non-compete clause hasn't been a problem. It's not like every week or every month or every year we're cracking heads over, hey, we want to do this. You can't because of this. That's not what's happening. It is not the day in and day out interactions between Park and Rec staff and school committee and school department staff. I mean, there's certainly times where we've had to, compromise and work together because we're trying to fit 10 pounds of garbage in a 5-pound bag, and we can't do it, right? We're running out of time and space. This isn't going to work. How are we going to adjust? And we work it. And that's the way it's worked for many years. And I don't think this really, again, a lot of this is so self-evident that we do it already. What is the need or purpose? So what problem is it solving? I really don't see any.
That's what I'd love to know.
And I also personally have a significant problem with the methodology and the process that they're invoking in order to get, even if it was a good idea, which I don't think it is, or if it was solving a real problem, which I don't think it does, this is not the way to go about it. Manipulating the town meeting process and procedures and taking advantage of state statute that we have to do that, I don't think it's appropriate. I really don't.
So I absolutely agree that, like, the methodology for going about this is petty and wrong, and especially where the person who is really behind it is, someone from out of town who's using someone from town to get this through. I will say, however, that I don't care for the non-compete clause, and if there's really no need for it, then I see where it benefits Park and Rec. I don't see where it benefits the schools, you know. Taking your example, if we were in a budget crunch and we needed to offer Spanish lessons to save a Spanish teacher, would we want that to stop us, you know?
I mean,
So, you know, I don't see how that, it's helpful to us. So I'm not a fan of the voter petition. I don't like the way it came up, but I'm also not a fan of the non-compete clause.
So if that were the case and you were to take, you know, if you were to offer Spanish lessons that we were already offering, we would probably stop offering our French lessons, our, you know, other foreign language lessons that we were also offering, because the writing's on the wall. When you guys need money, you're gonna do what you have to do.
But would
And
you? You would just take away a service because we offered one service?
Well, we're not,
Retaliate, you know?
well, I mean, but we're also a business in the sense that, you know, we're an enterprise business in town. So we're not going to bring in, you know, it's bad for business to ask instructors in good faith to come and teach our community and then have another town entity undercut them. It's bad for business, all around.
I think the, excuse me, the example that we're using perhaps isn't the best example. We've worked very hard, Park and Rec and the school department, to make sure that we have the latitude we need to offer any academic program that we would like to. When they ventured into coding, it was only after a discussion with us that we really don't have a desire to do this right now. You have some people that can do it. It would be great enrichment for our students. So we have quite a bit of collaboration, and we really try to stay away from programs that we may want to go into. We do our best. I can't guarantee that down the road we may not end up in some sort of discussion about a program that we feel we should do. An example is when I first started as superintendent, Park and Rec, for some reason, was offering SAT training. It didn't make sense to me. We're responsible for preparing our students to write SATs. Why would I give that responsibility to somebody else when we're going to be held accountable for how our kids do on SATs? So we met with Park and Rec, worked it out, they agreed, and we offer SAT training from that point on. So it's about give and take, and we have a great working relationship, and we're all trying to do the same thing, provide the best services that we can for our community.
And to Erica's point, my response would be, we think we all need to remember, it's a memorandum of understanding. It's not a contract. If we decided that we needed to do something like that, we're well within our rights to do it. We would just do it. The problem is, the issue would be, are we willing to burn the political capital to do it? We might decide that we are, and then Park and Rec might say, well, because you're doing that, that means we need to do this, and they're gonna burn some political capital, conceivably. That's inevitable. That happens all the time. We try to avoid it as often as possible, but each of our boards is well within their rights to use their political capital as they see fit, and when we have to, we do. It's the same thing when we have understandings about the budget process with the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom. It's an understanding, but when things on the ground change, if it's necessary, and we decide that we're gonna, you know, do something different, it's our prerogative. The question we always want to ask ourselves is it worth it? Because you're gonna use that political capital. In the long run, you may decide it's not, and you decide that, you know, we're not gonna. That's always our prerogative, even if we have a memorandum of understanding. And like the point I was trying to make earlier was, it just helps that it's explicitly stated that today, and for the past several years, the understanding is that this is how we separate and balance out trying to offer different services by different, you know, entities. That can change, but if it does, because it's explicitly stated, if it does change, we're all going to know. You know. Sorry, Tim. Yes.
Hi, Tim Mahowski, Assistant Director of Parks and Recreation. Hey, Mike.
Tim, do you mind just coming up to your microphone, which feeds to the LCTV telecast? It will help for people that are listening or watching.
Good evening. Tim Mahowski, Assistant Director of Park and Recreation. One of the things I just wanted to weigh in to the conversation that's going right now is just to the fact that, whether it's a language class, whether it's whatever, I think the important thing to remember is, when we're talking about doing any of these programs, everything that we do, everything that you all do is for the benefit of the citizens of the community of Littleton, and in our case, some of the surrounding towns. Specifically, if we're talking about a language class, for instance, if, 2 town departments were to offer the same language class or sports program or something like that, a lot of our contracts have minimum requirements for enrollment that are set by our instructors. So, in being good partners, especially like Park and Rec and the schools have been, it allows a lot of those programs to get the enrollment numbers that they need. Specifically, yes, if you had a teacher and they were getting a stipend versus some of our instructors who are coming in and have, this is what they do for their jobs, and meeting those minimums is basically the paycheck that they're getting. By spreading those out, let's just say that we're trying to get 10 people into a class. If you get 5 and we get 5, that's not good for anybody, because chances are both instructors are going to end up canceling classes, and then the town loses out. The citizens who really want it are losing out. And this goes the same for whether it's a sporting program. The race this weekend was a great example. We actually had a 5K that we had planned for Sunday that we had on the books since the fall. When the PTA had come and asked us, and we started looking at dates to put together the color run, which was probably one of the most successful events that we've had here in my tenure at Park and Rec, as well as just in general that I've seen, here in the town of Littleton. We did see a drastic drop in our registration to the point that it stalled, and we ended up moving the race to the fall. So that's an example of we have a very small population in the grand scheme of things. People, while the economy is good, people still need to choose where they are going to spend the money that they do have, and invest it into the different type of recreation that they want to do. So in that, we had a great time helping out the PTA and the school committee and everybody else who was involved in doing that color run, and it was awesome. But, like I said, that was also at the detriment of us, pulling our event so that could happen as well. So just to kind of point those 2 things out. The other thing is, we accept proposals from anybody to teach classes at any time, and I've said it not to the school committee, but in our, private meetings numerous times. If it's allowed, we would prefer to have a computer teacher or a Spanish teacher or a French teacher or somebody, put in a proposal at the times that they're allowed to teach these courses, because the kids already know the instructors. They already know the teachers. We'd probably be much more successful for them to say, oh, Mr. Mahowski's running that class today, and I really want to be part of that because I had a lot of fun. It also gives students who might be older and have left a certain school to maybe come and utilize an instructor who they really, really felt a connection to and come back. So last summer, I believe, we had sent the course proposals to all of the teachers through Dorothy and Kelly, and in the future, I would really like to look at that opportunity to continue that, especially for our LEAP programming that we do in the summer, which is our enrichment programming. Teachers who might want to make some extra hours, extra stipend, things of that nature, who have the connections already in the community, to just continue to forge those relationships. So thank you for your time and listening to everything tonight.
Yeah, I'll just follow up and say that I think it's great that we have a working relationship, and I don't want to put anything, that in harm in any way. And I think, we're willing to give, I'm sure you're willing to give on certain things, and, that collaboration is what's beneficial to our community. I think that's great. I just don't see the non-compete clause as that working relationship. I just don't think it's necessary, I guess. But that's not directly related to the voter petition. I don't particularly support. I don't support the petition as it's written. I don't support it the way it came about. My only other question would be, is it really something that we take a stance on at all if it doesn't actually affect how we do business?
I mean, I see the point you're making about it's not going to change the way we do business, but I think because we are specifically in our purview, our realm of responsibility is specifically referenced in here a couple of different times, I think it's appropriate for us to decide if we feel like this is a good idea or not, even if it's somewhat of a moot point, because it's not going to really change our operations. That's personally how I feel. Any other discussion?
I'm just, does this is just an included article, and it's not a change to wording of the MOU or non-compete right now?
It's a bylaw change.
I mean,
So
it-
it's a complete rewrite of it?
Well,
I was
it
just gonna
would,
look for it and
the
see.
intent of the petitioners, at least if you review their social media content, is that this would supersede the MOU and effectively render the MOU, or at least the aspect of the MOU that's ostensibly being addressed in this article. It would supersede it, and then, and basically, even if we had it in there, we couldn't use it because it's no longer supportable by the code of the town of Littleton. That's their strategy. Whether or not that's true is still being determined by council, and to Daryl's point, that he raised, even though the town code of Littleton would definitely supersede any MOUs, but Mass General Law supersedes the town code of Littleton. That's irrefutable. That cannot be debated or changed, no matter how much people want to stamp their feet. And that's why, to Erica's point, and that was the point Daryl was making on Monday night by asking the question, we don't think it's really going to directly change anything.
Well,
if it
if it's
passed.
still being investigated by town council to see how it would play out, I'm not sure that gives me enough information right now.
Well, the problem is that, and this happened at Springtown meeting, the town meeting is going to happen
Right.
unless the article gets withdrawn. The vote is going to happen.
Right.
Whether or not it ends up having impact, because there were a couple of article citizen petitions that's exactly what town council said at town meeting. It's like, you can pass it, it's not going to change anything,
Got it.
because, but it's still going to get voted on.
Right.
So we don't have word from town council that this definitely won't change.
No. Town council has said that it's in its form, it's certainly a motion that can be made,
Right.
it's an article that can be put on a warrant at town meeting and voted on. That's been determined.
Sure. But I still
But watching the meeting the other night, I feel like there was a lot of confusion over the language of the actual article, and I feel like it could be, I just don't think we want to get into this, put ourselves in a position where it's open for interpretation.
Right.
That's my feeling, and that's why I make a motion to not approve the voter petition article for special town meeting.
So,
Just support, you're saying? To not support.
Yeah,
to
not support.
Motion made, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Further discussion, so I'm happy to have. Usually I say that as pro forma, in this particular instance, that we may very well have more than we want to talk about before we actually entertain the vote.
I mean, I think it's clear that from the school committee perspective, it's not going to change much. So I'm just, yeah. Just want to throw that.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine,
Yeah.
and I'll just remind everyone that you can vote yay, nay, or abstain. I mean, my personal, I agree with your point, and I think that that's helpful to the community, that they understand that our point is that regardless of whether or not it passes, we don't think it's going to have a significant or any impact on the way because of Mass General statute irrevocably giving us control of how we use our buildings. But I still feel strongly enough that even though that's true, it's redundant, it's unnecessary, and it's not solving a problem. So why would we amend the town code of Littleton unnecessarily? That's just bad. It's a bad idea to have verbiage in it that means nothing. That's not what the town code's there for. It's there to direct the boards, committees, citizens on how we are actually going to do our business. And this doesn't do that, so it's a waste of time and effort to have it in there. So I don't support it at all for that reason.
Earlier, we were talking about process. From what I gathered at that time, I thought we had consensus that we agreed, the school committee more correctly agreed, that the process is flawed. And so if you vote not to support this, what message you would be sending the community is that you don't support anything, the process or the contents. And when these things come before a community, quite often community members look for elected boards for guidance. So it may not have a direct impact on us as a committee, but your decision may have an impact on community members as to whether they feel this is something they should vote for or against.
Any other further discussion? All right, then, I just want to be explicit. All those in favor of not supporting the voter petition article for town meeting, respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Tim, I
time.
know you ran over here from another meeting. I appreciate that.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you guys very much.
How was traffic? Did it calm down a little bit out there?
Good, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
All right, so circling back up to presentations, we have one school improvement plan that we want to hear from Shaker Lane.
And the Bruins start pretty soon, so I will make this short and sweet.
Will you like them?
You might already be on.
A little bit. So I know that there is a little bit of a presentation in the packet, but I've updated it since we last met and since it was last presented, so I just want to make sure that I give the due credit to the staff and students at Shaker Lane and all the work we did this year. So our first goal under curriculum, instruction, and assessment, one goal that was shared between Shaker Lane and Russell Street was to come together as a staff and talk about vertical alignment. So we did this through a number of different subgroups: behavior, science, math, reading, social emotional meetings. So we met, we had some professional development time, one of our early release days, and we discussed current practices and goals to align us vertically and horizontally amongst the two schools. We continue to align our assessments to make sure they are parallel to our district and state curriculum expectations. This year in kindergarten, we had 2 classrooms pilot a Foundations program, which is a phonics program that focuses on multisensory systematic approaches. And we are purchasing this next year for our kindergarten and first grade students. We launched our standards-based report cards in grades pre-K through 2 this year. We also continued to use the Fountas and Pinnell reading benchmark assessments, progress monitoring, and data. This is our 2nd year of inception. Under curriculum and assessment, we also looked at our student success team. So a student success team is evaluating a student's progress, coming to the table with teachers and service providers to figuring out if there is a deficit for a student, how can we evaluate best practices and put a tiered system of support in place for students. So we reevaluated our SST form. We included the district curriculum accommodations plan, and we also are working to provide specific data collection and assessments for SST meetings. Under PD, some guided math that aligned with our curriculum. Last year, we had started to really venture into the guided math world, and we did a visit to another school. This year we had professional development with Dr. Nikki Newton, who is a guided math guru. one of our Title I teachers at Shaker Lane offered a math routines book study focused on guided math. Under strategic goal number 2 for professional development, we have our professional development committee that meets. We looked and evaluated all of our staff-led PDs and created a plethora of offerings for our staff this spring. Heidi McGregor, our new science and technology teacher, created our Imagitorium, which was prior to our Shaky Lab. We have a wind tunnel, a Lego table, Ozbots. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. And I have to say, it is such a highlight of our Children's Day to walk down. And typically they see Miss McGregor and they say, when are we going to see you again? Because it's very exciting to have her there. And what she's transformed our tech lab to now it's called the Shaky's Imagitorium. For professional development, this also goes along with curriculum and instruction. Our school psychologist, Laura Braun, and school counselor, Justine Matherin, created a 6-week social emotional program that focused on the zones of regulation and, I'm losing her, Michelle Garcia Winner's social thinking curriculum, where they went into each classroom over 6 weeks and focused on topics to help our students become better adjusted to regulating their emotions, looking at personal space, being within a group, and had 6 topics. We also shared that information out with parents so they could follow up with those conversations at home. We continue to work on second step and purchased additional kits for school-wide implementation. Under professional development and a couple other areas, probably crossing over with community involvement, our school advisory council created a mentor guide and a volunteer guide. A mentor guide would be for new staff who join Shaker Lane, kind of like the ins and outs of Shaker Lane, not specifically the district, but more our school, so they know when they come into Shaker Lane, our heart program, where to find the copier, because it's hidden on the stage now, just different things that are specific to our staff. And we also created a volunteer guide where we had reached out to parents through a survey to say what do they want to know about volunteering at our school, that it's not just coming in during the day. There are other ways to volunteer if we have a lot of working parents. Under goal number 3 for community and communication, we have the weekly newsletter that we put out. Our school advisory council also surveyed parents to help out with the revised website that you now view when you come to the Littleton Public Schools website. We surveyed parents, explored other school websites, and met with Julie Lord to provide her some feedback for the revised website. We still have our teacher blogs and Twitter feeds. This year, for our community, we had the Charity Bell presentation. At Shaker Lane, we also, prior to launching our standards-based report card, we had a parent presentation evening where parents came in and we presented the standards-based report cards for them and allowed them to have some real-time questions and answers from us. We still have our Littleton High School students coming in and working in classrooms and with specialists. We have our senior community members volunteer in kindergarten. They do a reading buddy program with our kindergarten teacher. In our school-wide community events, I would be remiss if I didn't name these because we worked really hard to create service learning projects, how students can give back to the community. We did a fall cleanup day and cleaned up Shaker Lane. We did a hat and mitten drive for the House of Hope in Lowell. We created Mother's Day gift bags for the Wish Project. I think we had almost 100 gift bags that we made for mothers that go through the Wish Project in Chelmsford. We also do a kindergarten food drive for the Loaves and Fishes in Devens, and then we have our traditional art show, Winterfest, book fair, and book swap. And one thing that we're proud of this year is we partnered with Massachusetts Department of Transportation Safe Routes to School to really evaluate safe practices. We had 2 successful walk and roll to school where kids were biking to school and walking to school, and we're hoping to have a day where we can have a whole walk to school where we will assemble at the beach, at the parking lot, and then walk to school as a group. So we're hoping for something like that next spring or next fall, providing the weather is good. They also helped us out with evaluating our drop-off and pick-up safety procedures to make sure that we're, looking at what's best for students and what's safe for students. So that was a really neat partnership for us this year. District strategic goal number 4 for climate and culture. Last year, we put together a safety committee. We met once a month last year. This year, we meet every other month, and we talk about the safety practices that our being explored in the district, and also practices that are specific to us in the building. And then we share these out at our grade level meetings and our staff meetings. We had 2 safety drills this year. For climate and culture, we also have our HARP program, which that folds into our community meetings that we have every month with the students. I think I already talked about, we also developed a building maintenance plan to help keep Shaker Lane spruced up. And the last strategic goal for technology, we continue to offer Tech Tuesdays and Tech Thursdays. Our Imagitorium, as I mentioned before, we have Ozbots, a Lego wall, a wind tunnel. These were grants that were written and awarded for Breakout EDU and the wind tunnel. We participated in Global STEM Day, Make Something That Does Something. We also have our school-wide participation in Hour of Code, where our kids learn how to code. A second grade STEAM Day, Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math Day. And this year and last year, we also explored with Google Classroom. As far as the administrative point of view, is I created a classroom for the staff, and when we have our staff meetings, the agenda gets put in the classroom. All the resources are there, so if they ever want to go back and utilize it, the classroom is our Google Classroom for staff. Thank you. Any questions?
Questions, comments?
Yeah. Can you tell me more about the safe routes and the evaluation? Like, was there feedback and any changes that they want?
Yeah, so one of the things that so what they do is they came twice, and there's a report that they published for us. They came and evaluated, are there a lot of emissions? Do we have cars that are idling? And we did really well with that. One of the things they were concerned about is, which I'm kind of happy that it's not just my viewpoint, is the drop-off in the morning in the middle of the parking lot. It is concerning because we still have cars parking, we still have people coming in, and we're dropping off students. And Mystique and myself and other staff members are out there trying to keep our kids safe. So we are looking at changing our drop-off and pick-up procedures where, if you go to many districts, it's a pull-up, get out, and then take off, pull up, put them in, and then take off. So we are evaluating that as you come down East Roxbury, and then using our turnaround to come up. So we're going to talk more about that. We talked about it at our safety meeting this morning, and the safety committee felt that this was a good plan. We're going to vet it out a little bit more and then launch it with parents, but lots of information coming to parents over the summer, what it looks like, a Google Map aerial view with all that information.
Thank you. I met with them at the conference, and I was thinking, oh, this would be great for Shaker Lane. So
Yep.
I'm glad you guys,
We're on it.
I just had a question about the Makerspace. Is that currently, or have plans to use it like as a special time, or is it just for teachers who have like a special project they want to go and do?
So this year was definitely an exploration year for us, and what we found out, we have a scheduling committee that meets to create the schedule for next year, and we actually have found that teachers who weren't able to work with Mrs. McGregor as much as they wanted felt that they kind of missed out. So we created a schedule next year. It's a 2-week rotating schedule where they'll sign up, so every other week they will get to see her directly on one of those days, and then there'll be open time that they can come in and use it. So there's a more direct approach next year that we found was valuable to the teachers who were able to work with her, not as much as the others. So we do have a plan for next year, every other week, to go to the Imagitorium in a set time.
Thank you.
And Mrs. McGregor brings ideas to the staff as well. It's a collaboration, and we're lucky to have somebody that's so specialized in that area, because she's networked all over, probably all over the world by now, and she has such great ideas that she suggests to the teachers as well. So it's working really well.
Very unique. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we're going to have a review of the Alternative Structured Learning Day program. Blizzard bags.
Much easier to say that.
By code, blizzard bags. So I got the Bruins memo, so we'll try and keep it short and sweet to go over this.
And Charo is starving, in case anyone was wondering.
What is?
Charo is that big C is on the ice.
Oh, sorry.
Perfect. Lots of respect for that man.
At least we have some updates. We have live-time updates. Perfect. So if we could go back up.
Well, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, back
No, no, perfect. Thank you.
Right here.
Yeah, great. So firstly, I just want to say thank you. There are so many people that really made this pilot a reality this year. and it was not possible without everyone's collective effort. And I really admire when people step out of their comfort zone to try something new. And sometimes these new things work really well, and sometimes they don't. But the first step is always to try. And I feel like this year, we definitely had people stepping out of their comfort zones with the snow day cancellation pilot, and I appreciate that. So with this in mind, I want to say thank you to our students for their flexibility and the willingness to try, to the parents and guardians for their support and guidance of their students throughout this process, to teachers who worked hard on program design as well as lesson creation and assessment, to the administration for their guidance in the program design and implementation, and of course to the school committee for allowing and encouraging our school personnel to try new endeavors. So I'm here this evening to discuss the results of our snow day cancellation pilot feedback survey and discuss future steps. So as a reminder, the pilot this year was a DESE-approved alternative structured learning day program. In Littleton, we chose to adopt the name of Snow Day Cancellation Pilot, also very frequently on the street known as blizzard bags. So programs like this are designed to reduce the number of additional school days beyond the 180 required days, minimize student learning disrupted by weather-related emergencies by providing alternative learning activities that may be completed at home or elsewhere, as well as meet the standard for structured learning time. So you can see here the guidance that the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education released with regards to these types of programs, and that these programs must involve substantial assignments and/or projects rather than resembling homework assignments, be accessible to all students, consider how to accommodate students without internet access or without devices at homes, as well as houses that have multiple children with having multiple assignments. And lastly, be able to serve all students, including students who receive special education services. So the guidance listed here really became the pillars on which we built the pilot this year. So now that we have completed our current pilot, we surveyed our stakeholders to gather feedback about their experience with it this year. There were 4 surveys that were all very similar but had some unique questions depending on the stakeholder. So the 4 groups of stakeholders included students, parents and guardians, teaching staff, and by this I mean classroom teachers, so those that had to actually create assignments and assess those assignments, and then all staff, which refers to any non-classroom teachers, so that's guidance counselors, administrative assistants, cafeteria staff, custodians. So you can see on the slide, that there were 485 students that completed the survey, 203 parents and guardians that completed it, 54 of our classroom teachers, and 21 of our all staff that completed the survey. The survey was sent out May 7th and it closed on May 22nd. And another item to note here is that this year we did only have 1 snow day that fell under the purview of the pilot program. That's really important to remember when we look at these results. So we had 1 day to base these opinions off of. So the next few slides highlight some questions or statements from the survey or surveys, as well as the responses. So here, the statement was the assignment or project was age and level appropriate for me/my child. Please note that I combined the language here from the student survey as well as the parent guardian survey just for the sake of this presentation. So the wording was appropriate for the group taking the survey. You can see the responses in the pie charts here that 80.4% of students either agreed or strongly agreed with that statement, and that 92.1% of parents, guardians either agreed or strongly agreed with that statement. The next statement was I or my child was supported during this pilot. So we can see that majority of both students and parents agreed with this statement. 87.9% of students agreed or strongly agreed, and 89.2% of parents agreed or strongly agreed. For the next one, this statement reflects whether people believe that the snow day cancellation pilot is a viable alternative to the making up of a school day. And we can see the responses in the pie charts from all 4 stakeholders. So going over these quickly, the students, 72.5% either agreed or strongly agreed, which means that 27.4% did not. Parents and guardians, 72.9% agreed or strongly agreed, whereas 27.1 did not. Classroom teachers, 74.1% agreed or strongly agreed, and 25.9% did not. And lastly, for all staff, 85.7 agreed or strongly agreed, whereas 14.3% did not. And so lastly, and most likely the most anticipated question, is would you like to see LPS implement a snow day cancellation program next year? So the blue in our pie chart here is the yes, it's the positive answer, whereas the red area is the negative or the no. And so again, we can see that majority of people responded positively to this question. So students, 66.4% said yes. Parents and guardians, 72.9% said yes. Classroom teachers, 85.2% were yes. And for all staff, 85.7% were all yes. And so when we break down the responses a bit more, we can see some common themes that emerge. And with regards to these common themes, I've broken them down into 3 different categories, one being positives with the green check mark, one being negatives with the red X, or for those, as we like to say in education, they're areas for growth rather than negatives. And that the third is the future considerations of what we would do moving forward. And so here on this first slide, we can see the students' responses. And so for positives that they saw coming out of the pilot this year was that they got to get out for summer sooner. So that was definitely eyes on the prize for them. They liked being able to do the work at home rather than hot classrooms in June. Even just today, it's already really stuffy in our classrooms, and we still have a couple weeks to go. Another positive theme that came out of the students' responses was that there was really enough time to complete the work. Whereas for areas that they didn't as much like from the pilot, there was feedback that about the seniors, which was a little bit of a debate when we were discussing this back in December, January. And the other, I think, really interesting part that came out of this was that some students felt there was a loss of socialization and that part of school that they missed. So gathering some considerations for the future, what they are wanting to see out of a future pilot would be the quality of the assignment. They want to make sure that the students felt very strongly that they wanted to make sure they were doing something very worthwhile and not just busy work. Also, they want us to consider VHS classes as AP classes because the VHS classes do not stop their curriculum during snow days. And they're concerned that if we have many snow days, of the amount of work that would pile up. And so those were common themes that we saw coming out of the student responses. Coming out of the parent and guardian responses, for positives, parents and guardians felt that they could really plan for the end of the school year. They were happy about not adding days to the month of June. And they thought that the assignments and projects really provided insight as to what students were learning in class, what they were doing with their teachers. And they were, for the most part, very happy with the appropriateness of the assignments and with the choices that were allowed within those assignments. For areas that they did not like as much is that some people were on the side that snow days are for fun and they don't want any assignments done. And the other negative here is that one snow day was not enough to provide valid feedback. And I think that is kind of what I was saying at the beginning, is that there was only one day this year, and I think we need to keep that into consideration for when we're evaluating something quite this large. For future considerations, parents and guardians would like to see the students receive assignments and packets sooner. They would also like more guidance with regards to the online resources. And they're considering starting a program after a couple of snow days. And finally, with our teacher and staff responses. So with positives, just like the students, avoiding the hot classrooms in June, they felt that it was providing positive learning activities for our students. And they felt that students really bought into the pilot and were not negatively impacted in any way. And they really liked the fact that there was many choice in the assignments for students. Whereas on the negative or sides for some growth, they're feeling some frustration with the current model as the way it sits. And they're grappling with the question of, can a packet or an assignment replace time with the teacher and peers, which then goes into the next concern of time with the teacher. And so for future considerations, clear instructions on what to pass in and when was a big consideration for them. And letting students choose assignment order is another consideration that they would like to see with if we move forward with a pilot. And so this was kind of a lot of information fairly quickly, but I think major takeaway from all of it is that many stakeholders liked some aspect of the program enough to respond positively. However, at the same time, with that, what this information also shows us is that there's room for growth within this type of program or pilot that we have. So some clear requests if moving forward include earlier communication for all stakeholders. Next year, this will be a bit easier because we'll be able to start the program earlier, which allows for communication at back-to-school nights and conferences, parent-teacher conferences, which we weren't able to do this year with it starting halfway through the year. Additionally, really getting the word out about the online component for the pilot. We do have the website, but with the earlier communication, we can do a better job at sharing that link out and referring people back to that one spot so that everyone's really receiving that same message and information. And lastly, clear guidelines for the program as a whole, which again circles us back up to the very first bullet, which is the earlier communication. And so I think that they're all kind of really tied together, right? So it'll lead to, one positive will lead to the other improving as well. And so with all of this information and knowledge and feedback in mind, it is our recommendation to complete another pilot year during the 2019-2020 school year. And so that's kind of where we stand right now with this.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
Yeah, I'm definitely on board with another pilot year. I think the concern for me continues to be the special ed students and the making up of their services, and I don't think one day lets us know whether or not that's going to be possible.
Absolutely.
Exponentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did have something, I was curious as to whether or not you're thinking next year you'll still only do 3 days, or are we looking at potentially 5 days? What your thoughts are on that?
Do you want to take this or do you want me to?
I can certainly take it. We've been going back and forth on this, and the reason why we've had a lot of deliberation is the program is designed for 5 days, so if we go to 3 days, we're going to have to do some restructuring, which is fine, but if we restructure, we still need to maintain the integrity of what we're doing. It cannot replicate homework, and our biggest concern is if we don't have enough time, it's very hard not to replicate homework. So we're really pushing for interdisciplinary assignments to get away from that. So it can be done. It's just going to take a little more time to restructure than if we went for 5 days. But Beth and I have how many conversations we've had, but we are comfortable moving forward with 3 days. I think that would alleviate some of the concerns that we've heard in terms of special education students making services that were lost. And it also takes into consideration that we want to maximize the amount of time that our students are with staff in a classroom learning environment. So I think it's, by going to 3 days, that we're taking into account what we heard this year, although we only had 1 day. But even before we started, we heard some of those concerns. So our recommendation would be to proceed with the pilot with a 3-day blizzard bag program rather than 5.
Do you see that kicking in with the first snow day, or?
Well, that's something, we have to be cautious here because we still have to negotiate with the union, so I don't want to be too prescriptive at this point in time, but that would be something that would be up for discussion. There'll be different camps on whether to do the 2 days first or 2 regular snow days first and then jump into the blizzard bags. Some may want to do blizzard bags first, so that'll be a discussion that we'll have.
I'm definitely in favor of another pilot year. I think it's the process is you're going to work out kinks. There are some things, I feel like there were a lot more positives than there were negatives. And I think that's what we do. We adapt things until we get it right. So I would have liked to see more than one snow day, obviously, but next year, you know, I'm sure we're not going to be that lucky 2 years in a row to have so few snow days. So maybe we'll have a little more data. But I mean, as a teacher, I'm totally jealous that the teachers in Littleton get to have blizzard bags.
You guys are just asking for blizzards after blizzards. I was curious about the teacher or staff comments about frustration with the current model. What is that specifically related to?
So it's tricky if they didn't give specific examples within the data. I think one thing goes back to, which I think it was in another part, in the future considerations under the staff, the second bullet under the that part says let students choose assignment order. I think that was a point that was a little frustrating because they were given some directive as to what they could pick first, which then for the teachers, it also meant that they had a certain directive of the students couldn't pick their assignment first or they had to pick their assignment first. And so I know through conversations with some staff that was an area of frustration, but I can't speak to others because there weren't other
Yeah,
specifics.
that's fine. I wasn't sure if there was like a common theme where like.
So would that mean that, you know, one teacher ended up having to assess a whole, you know, all their students on that activity, whereas another teacher didn't actually have to assess any? Is that the stick?
There was some conversation in terms of equity, but as we pointed out to them, we can't choose the number of snow days that we're going to have. It's Mother Nature. So there's going to be some inequity, but in the end, everybody benefits. And
Right.
I think that's the selling point. There's also, from a pocket of staff that teach older students, that they would really like to just give homework, but that's not authentic, and it certainly doesn't meet the guidelines of the state. So we're adamant as a leadership team that if we're going to do this, we want quality. And
With the older students, do any of your teachers do like the flipped classroom, and would that fit into this model? And
yes, and we do have some that are doing that. We certainly would like to encourage more to do that. I think this is a great opportunity for teachers to do things that they have trouble putting into their regular routines. It really forces our teachers to reflect and excuse me, look at alternate ways of delivering instruction and doing it in a real dynamic way. So I think for PD, I think it's great. It's authentic PD. I know it's our first year, but excuse me, as a superintendent, I'd really like to see more interdisciplinary linkages as we move forward as well.
To your point about homework, I think it's a good point to think about. We need to keep in mind, homework for older students is distinctly different than homework for younger students. Right? Homework for younger students, a math worksheet is a math worksheet is a math worksheet. It's important, it's beneficial, but that's homework. Whereas an older student, you think about an English assignment, a language assignment, history, whatever, it's not a worksheet. It's read something, evaluate it, write something up, which is a lot of what was presented to us as the alternative learning snow day program. So there's a correlation. So you could see where that would be a debate among professionals to say, well, where do we draw the line between my homework looks like the blizzard bag anyway? Well, yours does, but maybe not everybody else does. So you guys got to search out that balance and make sure that as best you can that there's consensus and agreement and buy-in. But that's your job, not ours. So, but I think it is an interesting point to think about when we say homework at that high school level, especially when you get into those upperclassmen, upper class level curriculums. It's a different animal by definition, as it should be. That's good. My only comments are, I think it's going to help everybody to kick this off in September, October,
Yeah.
and let it play out over the course of the year, which we just didn't have the luxury of doing. I don't think it was a problem or mistake, but I think that it may be a blessing in disguise to only get the one snow day because it's forcing us to keep ourselves in evaluate. We'll never stop
Right.
evaluating, but much more of an evaluative mode of operation for another year. And we got zero feedback on the impact on providing, services for students on IEPs and stuff. So we're going to need that before we can make final determinations about go or no go. I also think when we think about the 3 days versus 5 days, I personally think 3 days is a good balance. I don't really think there's any benefit to letting the first day or two. And I don't think we should get hung up on 5. 5 was a number that we used, and right now, we're not going to use that number. So to say, well, 2 plus, do 2 days and wait, and then you do the 3, there's no reason to do that. If we're going to have them, let's use them. And if there's more snow days than we don't do, we just replace them, that's fine. I also think that what we may find is that if we move forward on the pilot and we work it out, and we decide we're going to move forward, after a couple of years, 3 days, people might be begging for a 4th and 5th day just because of the type of assignment. It's beneficial, it's worthwhile, my child likes it, let's go, let's roll, and let's do it. And we may even find that these types of assignments aren't tied to snow days. They're just part of our curriculum and delivery of curriculum because some students are going to respond and we talk about socialization and working with the staff, but there are also independent learners who sometimes chafe at that because they're getting held back to a degree, or they're just not comfortable performing in that environment. But you put them in front of their computer at home and tell them to go to work, and they're going to kill it. That's what they like to do. That's how they like to work. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and I definitely support moving forward with the pilot. And I think that we're going to benefit from piloting again anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I do have a couple more comments.
Sure, that's fine.
One, I agree, yes, moving forward with another pilot year is great. I do disagree, though, about, having a couple snow days before implementing the program. I mean, I understand, yeah, a lot of work has gone into creating the bags, but also there's something to be said for having like a couple snow days where you just make it up and there's no expectation and you're just having fun those first couple snow days. Like, you're not freaking out that, oh, now this means I have another assignment. So there is something to that from my point of view. And then the last thing too is, kind of what Erica said. Obviously, we do have to make up special education services, but there's also something to be said for those students that who aren't necessarily on an IEP, who, either need social interaction or they have like tier 1 services or just like go see a specialist. Those things won't be required to be made up as far as I understand. Or, they don't have to be. So it's just something to think about. But otherwise, yeah, let's the pilot moving forward and making changes and seeing how it works out next year with all these blizzard days that we're going to get now.
Right now, jinxing ourselves here.
In terms of entertaining a motion or something, I think we should wait. I think you guys clearly have some things you want to work out, and I think it would be appropriate to let us come back in September. You guys give us this is how this year is going to go, here are the changes we made, adjustments, et cetera. And then once we've evaluated that, we can certainly vote at that point to move forward. I think we have a consensus and you guys have enough direction to move forward. I'm confident that we know in general what we're going to do, which is now it's down to the details and
Exactly.
specifics. All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. One item left on the new business, signature authorizations. This is for accounts payable and payroll. We just need to annually decide if we want to have one person or two, or we can do it any number of ways, but not requiring a majority just streamlines the process. We've historically, since we've been doing this, we've picked one person, but we just need to reauthorize that by a vote of the school committee.
Make a motion to authorize Mike Fontanella to
It doesn't have to be me, just one person.
No,
Just-
I think that's appropriate, you.
I don't think that motion really is really supportable, so I'm gonna have to ask that you, I'm gonna ask friendly first time that you amend it. To say that we only require a signature.
Okay, make a motion to only require one signature for authorization of accounts payable and payroll.
Motion made second, is there any discussion? I'll do it, all right? Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Any more interested citizens? No, they're watching the Bruins, lucky them. Subcommittee reports, PMBC, Darrell is not here, he's traveling on business, there's nothing to report from the budget subcommittee, policy subcommittee?
Same.
Okay. This is our last regular meeting as scheduled on our, for now, we go into our summer hiatus. We'll have a workshop in August and then start meeting regularly again in September, so thank you, everyone. We do, though, require an executive session, 2 items related to contract negotiation. So I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of contract negotiations with no intention to return to open session. So we can just say so.
So
It
moved.
says with intention on that.
I know, but we're
Okay.
going to change that to say with
That's
no
fine.
intention. We'll change that.
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded. This is a roll call vote. Erica?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Jen?
Aye.
I say aye as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.